Hey guys, and welcome back. Today we are going to be ranking all the scenarios in Marvel Champions, the living card game created by Fantasy Flight Games. It is my favorite tabletop game to be playing, and I play it weekly. I've already ranked all the heroes, so if you want to see that, go ahead and look at the other video. That's all that, and today we're going to be talking about every single scenario that you can be playing. I'll be doing them in order of release as best to my memory. I do play them pretty much at random. We'll just be like, hey, let's play this character, let's play this villain with these modular encounters and so forth. So I did put them in the order as I thought that they were released, and but you know what, I might get some wrong, especially whenever it comes to Next Evolution, because we only played through that one once. But yeah, so let's start off with Rhino. Rhino is the first boss you're going to fight in Marvel Champions. He is an introductory boss. I don't find him to be that good because if you're playing solo, you can literally lose in a single turn due to him threading out. And he doesn't offer enough to actually teach the game. He's a good starter, but that's about it. I'd put him at a solid C tier. He's not bad, he's just not interesting. Then we have Claw. Claw really ramps up the how much you have to do in the game with multiple tiers to his scenario. He offers things like attachments and all that stuff, and like very debilitating treachery cards and all that stuff. So with that, he definitely gets ranked above Rhino. I'm still going to put him at a C, but he's going to be at a C above Rhino. Ultron really ramps up the difficulty. The fact that Rhino and Ultron exist in the same box is actually kind of confusing because Ultron, now you have environment cards, you have minions getting spawned every turn, and at that point in the game, during the core set, there wasn't very many ways to deal with a massive minions. I mean, you had like She-Hulk that could do it, but most people just... Those Ultron drones became overwhelming rapidly, but I'm not going to rank it based on whenever it was released. I'm ranking it based on how I play it now. I think Ultron is a solid B tier. He's engaging. He can be difficult. He can spiral out of control, but you can also build directly for him, and it's fun to play against. It's fun, especially whenever you start like, oh, we're taking on Ultron, let me bust out like War Machine or something like that, or let me do some dive bomb combos against him and all that stuff. It can be a lot of fun. Next would actually be Risky Business. Risky Businesses, they really tried something different with this one, with a two-sided villain and a very different scenario. I actually really enjoy it. I put it at a very good B tier. Mutagen Formula is one that people will say is usually good to train people with on the game because it offers a lot, especially with like dealing with minions and stuff, and it has a very involved scenario. And I agree. I believe that is a nice A tier scenario. It's a very good scenario. Wrecking Crew, I'm going to rate it based off of how it comes. Because with Wrecking Crew, I enjoy it because I'll throw in modular encounters. One thing I enjoy doing is we like to play 4-player games, and we'll just drop our nemesis in like each we could like drop a nemesis in each one or stuff like that, or just add a modular encounter to each one. But that's not how you're supposed to play it. With the way that you're supposed to play it, it becomes very samey. It's just kind of a one-note thing. I think it was a pretty weak encounter on creation. And yeah, so that we're going to have to put it at just a good old D. Next we move on to the Rise of the Red Skull campaign box. We start off with Crossbones. I think Crossbones is actually the best character, the best villain to teach somebody how to play the game with. Go ahead and put him on an S while I'm talking about him. He offers you attachments. He offers you rapidly rising scenarios with scenarios. I can't think of the word. Schemes that you have to thwart, that you have to take care of, because he can easily threat you out as much as he can beat you down. With that, he has attachments. He has multiple decks that he works with. Very specific scenarios. He is fantastic to teach the people the game with, and for that, I'm gonna give him an S. Absorbing Man, you're gonna hear me use this term a good bit. I didn't use it for Rhino, and I should have used it for Rhino. It's called a patchwork encounter. It's from my World of Warcraft days, where it's basically just a boss you kind of beat down, and there's not too many mechanics to him. Absorbing Man is that, and he just feels like, honestly, a worse Rhino to me. Like, I've never had any sort of trial with Absorbing Man. He's not difficult. He's not interesting. I'll put him at a D. Next up, we have Taskmaster, one of my favorite villains in Marvel out there. Very charismatic hero, very done improperly in the MCU, of course. However, his scenario is actually very interesting because it adds a layer of strategy to the game on how often you should be flipping, knowing that if you do flip, you have to flip back and take the damage from him. He adds, as I said, just it's a layer of strategy to it that I really enjoy. I very much enjoy the Taskmaster scenario. He's going to be a very high A tier for me. Arnim Zola, he's a pretty difficult encounter, with the built-in retaliate and all that, the constant flooding of minions, the building up of minions. You can definitely feel I think the Rise of the Red Skull entire box set was built very well because it felt like a very escalating in difficulty box set with that was my cat pulling down one of my various shelves that I have that have board games on them. Luckily, everything that was on that shelf was very well sealed, and everything's fine, so I'm gonna go pick it up after this video. Where was I? Arnim Zola. He's a solid. I'm gonna put him at the high B tier. I personally don't find him like he's very well developed and very well designed. I just don't find him very fun. Again, this is my personal ranking and everything on how much I have fun with something. I will try to be a little impartial in some of them, but for some that I just don't enjoy the constant retaliate and everything, especially since ranged is such a rare keyword in this game whenever it shouldn't be, considering why a lot of things just don't have range that should, or like at least activated range, like pay a resource to gain range and stuff like that. I don't know, it really shows a design flaw in the game, so that's why I'm only going to put it at a B. Red Skull is an amazing encounter with just as its normal build is really good, and then whenever you add other modular encounters into it, whenever you're doing your own personal, and you get to set up which side schemes are going to be put in, he's a ton of fun. I'm going to put him at a solid A. And just that rapidly rising power that he gets from all the side schemes. Yeah, he's good. He did fall off a little bit in power with the addition of Cable, being able to throw some of them off into the abyss and yada yada, but he's still a lot of fun. Kang was our first solo, or no, I'm sorry, no, Kang was our first not solo, but he was the best of the solo ones in my opinion that have ever been released. So Mojo's already gonna be ranked lower than this one. I find Kang, the entire encounter, to be very thematic. It feels like an actual adventure as you go on through it, where you travel through time, you get your team split up and everything. It is one of the most thematic scenarios out there. I'm actually gonna put Kang in a decent S tier. He's extremely fun. If you have not picked up the Kang encounter, I really recommend it. He comes with some interesting modular encounters. Adding your own modular encounters into him is really cool. On expert, he's very difficult. So, whenever I say very difficult, I also mean fair difficult. We'll be getting into very difficult later when we get to a certain somebody. Badoo Hunter, it's something. It's just I do have bias against some things that I did not enjoy in the comics themselves, and the Badoon they're not interesting characters. It was kind of a nothing scenario. C tier. It's not bad. It's just uninteresting. The next two are some of my favorite scenarios, so I'm actually going to rank because they kind of flow together. So I'm actually going to rank them at the same time. The Infiltrate the Museum and the Escape the Museum. Both the fighting the Collector, dealing with the Collector, actually learning the Collector is like an elder and he's, he has this immortal form and everything. Both of those scenarios back to back going into them are such a fun set to do. It's something that me and my friend who play this game weekly with me, we talk about the scenario and we get excited to play whenever it's time to play. So we actually don't play it too much because we don't want to burn ourselves out on it, but we just thoroughly enjoy this scenario. And I just kind of clump them together because they do kind of like fit in together. So I'm going to just go ahead and put those two together. Next up is Nebula. Nebula, remember how I said the Red Skull like had a nice like flow of power where you felt like an increase in power throughout the whole thing, culminating at the Red Skull, who had this nice gradual increase in power, and he felt by the time you get to the end of the scenario he's extremely difficult, hitting you for a lot and all that stuff. Nebula, I've had it where we've beaten her without her actually barely activating. You can keep her stunned, you can keep her confused. She has to draw her cards. I mean, I know she gets one right at the start, but after that she has to draw them. You can Black Widow them. You can do all sort. She's not very good. I think she's actually a very poorly designed one. As much as I personally enjoy the hero, the actual scenario is really bad. Ronin the Accuser. So whenever I was talking about fairly difficult, then we have unfairly difficult. Ronin is he's kind of boring in that regard. He's almost patchwork, to where all you're doing is you're hitting a big meat shield that hits you really hard. But his is I'm going to keep on hitting you, then I'm going to surge, I'm going to hit you again, I'm going to surge, I'm going to hit you again. I'm going to get my weapon back. Oh, you got rid of it, I got it back. I'm going to surge, I'm going to hit you. He's not fun. We don't ever look forward to going against Ronin, and I don't know, I think he was very poorly designed. He's nice if you just want to give yourself a challenge or if you want to find somebody you can zerg down. But I think he's bad. Ebony Maw. We're now moving into the Shadow of the Mad Titan. Ebony Maw was a very interesting encounter, especially with all the spells and stuff. You have to kind of watch the countdown on them. Can you beat him before the fireball goes off on your character and kills it and stuff like that. I really enjoyed Ebony Maw. I think he's a solid A tier design. Next, we have the tower attack with Corvus and Proxima Midnight. This one was a pretty interesting one. I felt it was just a bit too easy. We never have any difficulty with this one. It's just we've had it where like the tower's taking almost no damage. It's interesting in design, it's too easy to be fun. So that's why I'm gonna put it at a C tier, low C, not quite D, because it's still interesting and. It's one of those, like, you could show somebody the game, how different the mechanics can be. I just think the mechanic fell a little flat. Thanos. Thanos is... I'm going to be ranking him based off of the campaign scenario as well, because he gave me one of the best campaign finishes, I felt. If he gets a snap off and you have to run the rest of the campaign with only a half a deck, and you don't even know what you lost right away... That is amazing. It is so thematic. It is so great. I absolutely love that feel of losing half your deck, and then it's not like a half, well, I'm losing these cards. No, like your deck just goes away, and you're not sure. You have to solely figure out what he took from you. We play that you can't even look at like what cards were lost and everything. You just have to figure out what was lost over time. So I absolutely love Thanos. I'm going to rearrange these a little bit. So I'm going to put Crossbones in S because he's the best to train with, but I don't think he's my favorite. So I'm gonna put him over here. So right now I'm trying to keep them in order of like actual where they rank on the thing. Hela is another one that's like just great to show off the mechanics of the game with her escalating schemes and whatnot, the way that you have to kind of like go through them, and each time you go through one you have a new boss to fight, and the boss is really hard and does a lot of damage or it punishes you. So the first time we fought Hela, one of my friends really loves playing like high justice, high thwart characters, and we got punished so hard by going through them too fast. And I think that's just a very good design. So I'm going to put her above Red Skull. We have Loki. Remember I talked about the whole Red Skull kind of gradually going up in difficulty? I think the difficulty of the Mad Titan was built into both Thanos and Hela. And Loki just was a bit too easy. He's a fun encounter, but he's just a bit too easy. So not a pushover like the tower attack, but still just not super interesting. His whole flipping like into different Lokis, and then once he beat one of them is obviously stronger than all the others, and if you never see him, you'll never feel that difficulty, or if you take him out first, it's I could see where they wanted to go with the design, but I didn't quite hit it. Next up we have the Hood, which was our next standalone encounter. The Hood came with a lot of modular encounters, and because of that, he is the most like customizable game you can have. He can be really difficult, he can be really easy. You get to decide how he plays. For that, I'm gonna put him at a high B tier. I think he's really interesting. He's a lot of fun. I know B just seems kind of lower than like all these, but like A is just like really, really good. Then S is like perfect in my head. So that's why I'm saying like B is in no way bad. I think because it's how well can you build a game for him. Sandman, again, kind of patchworky. Definitely much more than Rhino, like much better than Rhino. I do like the whole like milling aspect that he comes with. So I'll put him at a low B. I'll put him above Loki. I do have a bias for Venom. If you watch my Marvel ranking video, I talked about how much I love Venom. If you look over my shoulder, you can see a little Venom displayed over there. He's one of my top 5 favorite Marvel characters. I'm so excited for Last Dance. I'm very sad that Eddie Brock is not a playable character in Marvel Champions, and I'm saying yet because I'm hoping that one day they do make him a playable character. As a villain, I do like the mechanic of hitting him as a bad idea and going after the bell is how you fight him, so it felt very thematic. And so it is my bias and the thematic behind it that I'm actually going to put him at an A. Put him above Mutagen Formula. Mysterio, I think, is the best encounter as much as I love Venom, I think he's the best encounter in the Sinister Motives. He's such an interesting fight with the way that he like plants cards in your deck and you get punished whenever you draw them. And he came with some really fun modular encounters as well with the Fool's Paradise side scheme out there that increases your max hand size but puts all the disadvantages on the field and all that stuff. I love the Mysterio encounter. It's very well designed. Sinister Six. It was a pretty interesting design. It's one of those that I felt were a bit too easy, and you could definitely just like cheese the damage with things like dive bomb or hitting multiple enemies, and or like I've had Wolverine just tear through them. So it's one of those like they were ambitious with the design, but I think it fell a little flat because it ended up not being that much of a threat. So I'll put it at a low B, probably the lowest B for right now. Venom Goblin, I believe he's a little overtuned. He's kind of not overtuned to the point of Ronin where he's just unfun. I just think that he is a bit too difficult to where it becomes kind of a chore to play him, and the fun aspect gets lowered on that. He comes out with too much right away. The constant swapping between all the things. I just personally don't enjoy it. I just think he's just on a difficulty level that is just not interesting to me. Sabertooth. I have a bias towards X-Men stuff. Venom is like the only thing outside of the X-Men that I enjoy more than X-Men. So a lot of my like X-Men stuff is going to be rated higher. Well, I would say that, but then, and we'll get to that in a second. However, the Sabertooth encounter is very interesting with the whole Robert Kelly thing, and you got to protect him. It added a new mechanic. It felt very fresh. So I'm going to put it at a solid A. A little bit above Ebony Maw. Yeah, probably over Mutagen Formula. Project Wide Wake, I think, is the best scenario in the Mutant Genesis. I'm just trying to decide if I want it over Hell. I found it very interesting with the Sentinels and all that stuff, and it just reminded me of that first episode of the X-Men cartoon with Jubilee and all that stuff. It really evokes memories for me, and as I said, just a very big X-Men fan. Yeah, I'll put it above Hela for me personally. Very close between these two. Master Mold, somehow just less interesting than Project Wide Wake. It was a little bit too easy. I'll put it at a high B. Mansion Attack. Again, these like multi-boss scenarios just always feel a little bit too easy for me. And I'll put it above the Sinister Six. I'll put it above Loki. But it wasn't that interesting. It felt a little bit too easy. Again, like Red Skull just had this wonderful balance of it just had an increased difficulty throughout the whole way. And then Mansion Attack, it felt like you were going up in difficult. Well, not Mansion Attack. Mutant Genesis. It's like you had Sabertooth, which is like a decent difficulty. Project Wide Wake went up a good bit. Then Master Mold somehow fell in difficulty. Then Mansion Attack fell in difficulty under that. So it was kind of imbalanced. Then you had Magneto, which was just so much more difficult than all the other encounters combined even. He was a very solid encounter, very thematic with the asteroid, and it kind of had that Hela feel where you had to like go through the different schemes and dig your way through it and all that stuff. I think Hela did it slightly better, so I'm going to put Magneto just below Hela. Next we have the Mojo Mania. Magog, he is a patchwork encounter that is not interesting at all. That's all I got to say about it. Spiral. She was very interesting with her design, where you have to kind of like go through the various TV shows to try to find her. Then you can only hit her whenever you finally found her. It was really interesting to play at first, and I don't know. I enjoy her a lot. One of my friends that I play with really hates her. That's because the first time that we played against her, he was playing Hawkeye, and we didn't fully grasp how Hawkeye was played, and yeah, he just got rolled. So I'm gonna put her at a solid B. Mojo himself, very cool, very, well, I would say very difficult boss, very interesting boss. I really enjoy him. I love all the different things. I love how just rapidly out of control it can get if you draw the wrong side schemes at the wrong time. If you get like the criminal modular encounter with him, where you have all those side schemes coming out, then you have his side scheme coming out, then you have curtain call going off. It can rapidly spiral out of control, and it feels like chaos, and it's just very well themed. I very much enjoy it. These next three I'm going to rate all together because they kind of flow together, and I found them to be incredibly lazy design. These next three are some of the worst designed encounters in the game, if not the worst designed encounters in the game. They were not interesting. I can barely remember them. That's how boring they were. They were boring. They weren't well designed. They all flowed together. I like the whole hope aspect. I wish it was more one encounter that they did with it. Instead, I felt like I wasted half my box playing this. As much as I love the rest of the box too, which you'll see I'll be rating the rest of the box pretty high. But the first three encounters of this box were very bad. Together, if I rated them all as one, they'd probably be a solid B tier. But since they decided to split it up amongst three different encounters, where I had to play one, then I had to play the next, and I had to play the next, it just kind of felt like I was doing the same thing over and over. I'm going to be giving them a D tier, and they are actually going to be lower than Ronin for me. I would rather play Ronin than them. They're not fun, and I think this was a very, very poor design. Juggernaut. I might have a bias for Juggernaut. If you look directly under my name or under my little video here, I have Puggernaught. I love the Juggernaut. My real name is Kane, so Kane Marco, all that fun. The Juggernaut is my favorite character in all of Marvel. Always has been, always will be. The encounter itself is patchworky but dangerous because he is a character that can kill you while you are in your alter ego form. I find that to be really cool. He's a lot of fun. I look forward to, I always like playing. I solo him a lot. I play against him solo. I love getting him like the Infinity Stones. I love giving him different things. I love beefing him up. Again, this is my personal ranking. If I wasn't such a big Juggernaut fan, I probably wouldn't be putting him in S tier, but I'm putting him in S tier because I love the Juggernaut. Mr. Sinister is another one of those characters that just, the modular encounters that he comes with, it like his scenario almost feels like you don't even have to modify it to make it just that much more fun. His just pre-built is so fun, and like him gaining his powers throughout the fight. Again, just whenever they hit the theme of the characters properly, like, you know, with Venom and the Bell, or Taskmaster and the Hunting of the Heroes, or Hela or Magneto, like whenever they hit the theme, it just feels so perfect, and it's like why you play the game. And because of that, I think Mr. Sinister just really hits that theme very hard. I'll put him directly under Venom. But yeah, he just, they nailed Mr. Sinister very well. Strife, again, one of those characters, just like the theme of just like you're being overpowered. You feel like you're winning, and then suddenly once the it flops over to the bomb phase and everything starts getting crazy. It's just, again, it's all about the theming, and once they get the theming down, it's the game becomes amazing, and they got the theming down, which is why I said it's so weird that the first half of Mutant Genesis is so bad, and the second half is so good. Like, it might be my favorite. If it wasn't for the first half, it would be my favorite of the box sets. But the first half of it's so bad that I can't rank it as my favorite. But let's move on. Unus. He's kind of patchworky again. He does come out with the genome thing, and you have to kind of take care of that threat and all that stuff. He's probably the best of the patchwork encounters out there, outside of Juggernaut for me. I think he's a very solid C tier, probably the best of the C tiers at the moment. The Four Horsemen are multi-bosses done correctly. It's the first multi-boss that I felt was it felt like an actual threat from all the bosses, especially with them getting out those side schemes right away, and you had a lot to deal with. They felt difficult. Now, if you build your decks specifically for dealing with a bunch of side schemes at once, with things like Against All Odds and yada yada, it definitely tones down the difficulty a good bit. But if you go in there with some pre-con decks and stuff like that, these guys are going to be a lot to handle. So I'll put them at the bottom of the A tier for me. The one that's labeled as the Apocalypse encounter was actually a bit of a letdown for me. Our first seeing of Apocalypse, he felt very easy. In fact, he felt depressingly easy. I actually had to go reread the scenario to make sure that we didn't do it incorrectly, because it felt so just ridiculously easy, and it was a huge step down from the Four Horsemen. I'm not going to put it at D, but I will put it at the lowest C. I think it is worse than the Tower Attack. I think it's better than Magog. Next is Dark Beast. Dark Beast was surprisingly difficult for us. We actually lost a few times against Dark Beast, and that whole time travel thing, and it really comes down to which modular encounters you end up selecting with him and what gets thrown into the mix, because they can rapidly become a problem. The indirect damage can become a problem. I'm actually gonna probably put him at the highest B tier right now. B for Beast. And then finally we have our last one that is currently out, which is in Sabertooth, the second form of Apocalypse, which did him justice. He was much, much more difficult, much, much more interesting. The constant flipping. You do a bunch of damage to him, then suddenly on the villain phase, he flips 3 times and heals up and, gains a bunch of other effects, and he has those celestial weapons that are just making you discard cards or making you do random things, stunning you, confusing you, all that stuff. This was such a good encounter, and again, I know I've been repeating myself on this, but it's all about the theme. You actually felt like you were fighting Apocalypse, and I really enjoyed the theming on that one. I'm going to put him... I'll put him above Magneto, but below Hela, because again, I think Hela just did her job very well. Anyway, so let's see if I want to rearrange these at all. Do I think that the... So yeah, I'm gonna put it at this. I really enjoyed the Thanos encounter. I love the Infinity Stones that just get pre-built into his deck. I love the snapping effect of losing half your deck. Again, as you can tell from this video, I'm very big on theme, and the theme behind this one is very good. Followed by the escape and infiltrate the museum. Yeah, they kind of blend together, and I know I took points away from that from the Marauders thing. But these are very interesting, and they still feel like two very different, distinct encounters. They just also happen to go together, and they blend together very well on that. I think Kang is by far the best of the solo scenarios, and if you don't own it, you should pick it up. It's a difficult encounter, even on the normal mode. I haven't played it with Standard 3 yet. I do want to play it with Standard 3. However, yeah, he has some really cool things. His obligation where he takes like 10 cards from your deck and hides them from you until you can deal with the obligation, all that stuff. Juggernaut, I will go ahead and admit it is my own personal bias to put him this high up with the whole Juggernaut theme. He is the best of the patchwork encounters for me, though. Crossbones is the best to teach the game with encounter. And if you guys disagree with any of that, well, hey, let me know. As for the others, I won't really go too much into all of that. As I said, just these encounters at the bottom, I just think need a lot of work in some way or another. However, that is my tier ranking on all the scenarios in Marvel Champions. Thanks for watching. As always, like, comment, subscribe, especially if you want to talk about yours. But yeah, until then, goodbye.